Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Robert Card? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Robert R. Card II was born on April 4, 1983, and lived in Bowdoin, Maine, which is about 36 miles northeast of Portland. He had one brother and one sister. Several generations of Robert's family lived on farmland in southern Maine. Robert graduated from high school in 2001 and attended the University of Maine. He remained there until 2004, but he did not graduate. In December 2002, while he was still in college, Robert enlisted in the United States Army Reserve. His rank was Sergeant First Class, and he was a petroleum supply specialist. His work involved shipping and storing fuel for vehicles and aircraft. On October 1, 2005, Robert married. He and his wife had a son together, but the couple filed for divorce in 2007. In 2013, their divorce agreement was modified. Robert was ordered to pay $74 a week in child support, and all his firearms were to be locked up when not in use. On or about July 6, 2023, Robert purchased a Ruger SFAR rifle chambered in .308 Winchester. He also purchased a Beretta 92F 9mm semi-automatic pistol. 10 days later, on July 16, 2023, Robert caused a bit of a disturbance when his unit was deployed to the Camp Smith Training Center to support training at West Point. He started behaving erratically and told people he was hearing voices. Robert threatened to conduct a shooting at a military base in York County, Maine. Service members who witnessed Robert's behavior contacted law enforcement due to their concerns about safety. He was transported to an Army hospital and was treated for suspected intoxication. Some reports indicated he was released the next day. Other sources claimed that he was there for 2 weeks. Either way, he was eventually released, and his time in the hospital was considered voluntary. Robert had worked at a recycling center in Lisbon, Maine, but it appears as though he had been fired from that position. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On October 25, 2023, Robert Card armed himself with his Ruger rifle. He made his way to a bowling alley in Lewiston, Maine. Robert entered the structure and started shooting. He killed 7 people in the bowling alley. The police were called at 6:56 p.m. Officers arrived on the scene in 4 minutes, but Robert was not there. At this point, Robert made his way to a bar and grill, which was 4 miles south of the bowling alley. He once again shot people with his rifle. He killed 8 people and mortally wounded 3 people. The police were called at 7:08 p.m. and arrived in 2 minutes, but once again, Robert had already departed. The police started looking for Robert. At 9:56 p.m., they found his vehicle at a boat launch in Lisbon, Maine. This is about 8 miles southeast of Lewiston. On October 27, at around 7:45 p.m., Robert's body was found near the recycling center where he used to work in Lisbon. His body was in the back of a trailer in an overflow parking lot that contained about 60 trailers. The police had searched this area twice before, but somehow missed this overflow parking lot. Robert died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Altogether, Robert murdered 18 people and injured 13. The murder victims ranged in age from 14 to 76 years old. 4 of them were deaf, 17 were men, and 1 murder victim was a woman. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts in a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Robert did not have much of a criminal record. He was cited for speeding in 2001 and in 2002. In 2007, he was arrested for DUI. He was convicted in that case. Robert had a reputation in the community as being bizarre and potentially dangerous. It was common knowledge to stay away from him. A former coworker of Robert said that when he saw that Robert was the killer, he was not surprised. Item number 2. Robert left a note at his house, which was recovered by law enforcement. it's clear that Robert did not have any intent on surviving after committing the murders. The authorities did not reveal the exact content of the letter, but indicated that it was addressed to Robert's son. Among other things, it contained information about how to access Robert's bank account and cell phone. Item number 3, one of Robert's family members indicated that he behaved in a manner consistent with schizophrenia. He started hearing voices at around the same time he obtained hearing aids. Robert believed that he was hearing things that he had never heard before, but not in a positive way. Rather, he believed that people were saying unkind things about him. This particular description about Robert's behavior is consistent with having some type of psychotic disorder, including schizophrenia. It is not unusual for people with psychosis to become paranoid and to believe that others are talking about them behind their back. With these auditory hallucinations, the person often perceives that others are whispering. They really can't make out what the people are saying, but they assume it's negative. Here's what may have happened in this situation. Robert had this hallucination where he thought other people were whispering. After he obtained hearing aids, he came to believe that he could hear the whispers clearly, like he could finally now make out what people have been saying behind his back this whole time. Unfortunately, he believed that what they were saying was not good, like they were making fun of him. In reality, it's unlikely that anybody was whispering anything negative about Robert. Rather, this was just part of his delusion. Item number 4. Prior to the shooting, Robert developed a number of interests. A few examples: he spent time on anti-government websites, reviewed content related to a financial crisis, gun rights, and commentary about Democrats, including Joe Biden. Based on posts that he liked on social media, Robert believed in the stolen election myth, invested in conspiracy theories about COVID-19, was happy that classified documents were found in Joe Biden's home, and wanted the IRS to be abolished. Item number 5. At the time making this video, Robert's motive for the murders is not known. There have been a few different theories. He may have been looking for a former romantic partner at the bowling alley and at the bar. Robert could have been targeting the 4 deaf people at the bar, perhaps believing that they were the ones who were whispering about him. He may have been targeting other people for the same reason. It's not clear. It's reasonable to believe that Robert had some type of specific grievance against at least some of his victims, because he conducted the shooting at establishments with which he was familiar. As far as the victims who he did not have a grievance with, it appears as though Robert simply wanted to cause as much harm as possible. He was sadistic, vindictive, and wanted the world to pay. Item number 6. Based on the reports about Robert's mental health symptoms, it's possible that he was suffering from some type of psychotic disorder. For example, he was paranoid, had an interest in multiple conspiracy theories, and said he was hearing voices. This brings me to the question, what role does psychosis play in mass shootings? Is it a contributing factor to these types of attacks? Research tells us that 69% of mass shootings do not involve any psychosis on the part of the perpetrator. In 11% of these cases, psychosis played a minor role. In 9%, psychosis played a moderate role, and in the remaining 11% of the mass shootings, psychosis played a major role. In these cases, psychosis was essentially the motive for the shooting, like it caused the person to commit the murders. Item number 7. What motivates someone who conducts a mass shooting? Research tells us that there are 5 primary motives that tend to come up repeatedly: power, revenge, loyalty, profit, and terror. Shootings also tend to occur not long after a loss in the perpetrator's life, like the loss of a relationship or of a job. Robert had recently lost his job. He was divorced as well, but that occurred years earlier. In Robert's case, I think the most likely motive is revenge, but there's no way to know for sure based on the information available so far. Item number 8. Does Robert fit the typical profile for a mass shooter? Here are the typical characteristics of this type of perpetrator. 97% of the shooters are male, 65% have a criminal record, 63% have a history of violence, 59% have a mental health history, substance use problems affect 43%, and 20% have a history of mental health hospitalization. Psychotic disorder was evident in 27% of the shooters. Robert had most, if not all, the characteristics of this type of perpetrator. He was male, he had a criminal record, people believed that he was violent, he had a mental health history, he appeared to have substance use problems, was hospitalized for a mental health condition, and may have had a psychotic disorder. It's worth noting, however, that the vast majority of people who have all these characteristics will not become a mass shooter. This brings me to my final item, number 9. Why has it been so difficult to study mass shootings and determine what exactly causes these tragedies? These types of crimes are widely covered in the media, but statistically, they are rare. The lifetime risk of being killed with a firearm in the United States is 1 in 358. The lifetime risk of dying in a mass shooting is 1 in 110,154. Just to put that in perspective, it is less likely than dying in a fatal dog attack. The odds of being struck by lightning are 1 in 15,300, which means that a person is over 7 times more likely to be struck by lightning than killed in a mass shooting. It's worth noting that 90% of lightning strikes are not lethal, so the risk of dying from a lightning strike is actually lower than the risk of dying in a mass shooting. Whenever researchers try to study rare human behaviors, it is difficult for them to determine the cause. Therefore, it is unlikely that research will yield a good explanation for mass shootings anytime soon. Those are my thoughts on the case of Robert Card. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.